Well, I've been seeing a lot of videos lately about Generation Z, also dubbed as Zoomers, and how they have a sense of why should they do what previous generations have done, namely millennials, Gen Xers, that are typically their parents as well as boomers, depending on how old the Zoomers are. And it's kind of disheartening also as a parent of Zoomers because they have all the data. They may be young, anywhere between those born in the last 25 years or so, but they have all the data. So they know, or at least have access to knowing what has worked and what hasn't for prior generations, and the way the economy has changed and the way the cost of goods and services has exploded. Things like Social Security and where that's going, and how I think it's estimated by 2032 or so that the fund will only be able to distribute like 75% to those collecting at that time, which won't include Zoomers. Also, the student loan crisis for these young, this youngest generation, the oldest of which are in university or just about finished, and having to contend with this if they did happen to take out student loans. Also, the nature of work has changed. It's a lot more difficult to get jobs that will also have some sense of loyalty or at least mutual cooperation to hiring somebody young, training them, helping them learn through the ropes as well as the ranks or hierarchy, if you will, of that organization. So those days are long gone. So there are some challenges there that I think are daunting. And frankly, on the flip side, there's a lot more prosperity for the generation than in previous generations. That's just a fact. The problem with that is that if you've grown up with the results of prior prosperity, that's your baseline. For example, if you grew up in a household with two parents, let's just say they're middle class. You have a house, you have two cars in the driveway, you have television in the house, you can afford to travel within the United States for at least 2 weeks, whether it's to Florida or California or even somewhere in the country, but you're able to reasonably afford a trip a year within the country. Okay. You don't have to really worry ever about having your electricity turned off or your cable or internet turned off due to lack of paying. Okay. You never have to go to the food bank because you don't have enough food. You've never really seen the back of your fridge more days in the month than not. Now, if you grew up in that environment, that's going to be your baseline. Any environment you pretty much grow in is going to be your baseline as a young adolescent. And so when you prepare to enter the world, that will be the lens you see things through. And I even noticed it within my children who have a lot more than I did at their same point in life in terms of lifestyle, future prospects. By that I mean the access to resources to be able to do what they want to do. They have all those tools and they're quite privileged in that respect. But still, I see there is also resignation due to the baseline that they have of desiring more, better. and almost not understanding the amount of effort it would take to not only be maintain where they are now, but to achieve better. And that's not their fault. They just, you don't know what you don't know. And so I think it's going to be really tough for them as they enter into adulthood and have to contend with some of the things that they didn't have to contend before. Something as simple as, do you get your own apartment? Do you get roommates? Or do you stay home with your parents? That's a big difference in lifestyle and cost of living, huge. The difference between having to buy your own insurance for healthcare, or if you happen to be able to remain on your parents' policy, as a lot of corporate sourced insurance will allow you till adult is 26. So remove that. Also, transportation. If you happen to live in a larger, denser metro city like Boston or New York, you can take public transportation in those cities for the most part. But if you live somewhere in the Southwest that is more sparse and spread out, that's just not possible. If you live in the state of Arizona, you need a car for the vast majority of people. It's just too sparse, and this is too far for you not to have a vehicle. So add that to the cost of things a young adult would have to contend with if they decided to move out of their parents' house and assume these costs that are already taken care of that they don't have to worry about before they leave the household for the most part. And this is not to even mention if they decide to seek higher education beyond high school, college or university or trade school, and that expense, okay? And then let's add to that some related ancillary expenses to those things, such as if they have an apartment, they have to pay for their own electricity, their own heating, their own water, things of that nature. If they have a cell phone, they will now would have to assume that plan and payment of those plans if they did separate from their parents. And so I think that's going to be the real mind shift Zoomers will have to go through and really think, okay, I want my independence, but how much am I willing to pay for that? I think we're going to see a return to, and we're already seeing that already, and even the younger millennials, and definitely some Zoomers, the returning to the parental home, and some even not leaving or staying later in the first place. And I personally think there's no shame in that. And I think if one is thinking, as if I was Zuma thinking, knowing what I know and what I see, and of course, this assumes that you can reasonably get along with your parents and the dynamics of the household. But even then, it's something worth thinking about. If I am turning 18 or 19 or 20, do I want to, depending on what I want to do with my life, if I've even thought that out to some extent, is my independence worth these additional financial burdens? Or can I consider the possibility of working with my parents or maybe even other Zoomers to try to eliminate or reduce these major costs such as transportation, healthcare, housing, to at least buy enough time that as a young person get enough of an income so I can maybe gradually ramp up to independence. Again, this is just my thought as a Gen Xer looking at the Zoomers I know, including my children. Ultimately, they will have to figure out what they want out of life and how they want to approach it. In any case, it will require a lot of work and a lot of different strategies from prior generations. And I think that the answers are out there. The challenge will be a mind shift from what they know to what they don't know based on what they want. And so I think that'll be the real challenge. Let me know what you think.